Hello. We are discussing the anatomy and physiology of larynx. Last time we discussed the muscles of the larynx which participate in speech. In this part 6, I want to discuss muscles other than larynx which are involved in speech production. I would like to divide this presentation into two parts because it's a huge number of muscles. Last time I did tell you that if you say that there are 100 muscles producing speech, then that number also may require some additions. And that's why I will not be able to complete the musculature participating in speech production, which is beyond the larynx, in this part 6. I may go for part 7 after some time. Now, let us go for the PowerPoint presentation as share the screen. And we have already considered this. The larynx is in that location. And as we go beyond, last time we considered muscles of the larynx, dividing them into extrinsic and intrinsic groups. And little bit of recap is in order. The classifications of the intrinsic muscles based on number, paired and unpaired. Already we have discussed that only one muscle is unpaired, and that is transverse arytenoid. Here it is. The second classification, according to actions, tensor of the vocal fold, abductor of the vocal fold, adductor of the vocal fold, and others, including those muscles which act on the laryngeal inlet. Tensor of the vocal cord. Generally, it is believed that only one muscle is involved as tensor, and that muscle is cricothyroid. Here it is, cricothyroid. Only one muscle is generally thought to be the abductor of the vocal fold, enlarging the rima glottidis, and that muscle is the posterior cricoarytenoid. Other muscles are either adductors of the vocal fold or they act on the laryngeal inlet. So, as per example, the transverse arytenoid, according to action, is an adductor of the vocal cord. Transverse arytenoid. Likewise, oblique arytenoid is also an adductor, bringing right and left arytenoid cartilages together, which means the vocal folds are also brought together. Adductors of the vocal fold or cord. Muscles which act on the laryngeal inlet, the inlet is dilated by thyroepiglotticus muscle. Here it is. Thyroepiglotticus. And the inlet is constricted by the sphincter here, which is called aryepiglotticus. So these two epiglotticus muscles act on the laryngeal inlet. They do not act on the vocal fold. According to nerve supply, the third classification, muscles supplied by the recurrent laryngeal nerve and muscles supplied by the superior laryngeal nerve, a branch of it called external laryngeal nerve. Well, only one muscle pair, cricothyroid, is supplied by the superior laryngeal nerve, and that is here. All the other muscles of the larynx, intrinsic muscles, are supplied by the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Both these nerves, superior laryngeal and recurrent laryngeal nerve, are branches of the vagus nerve, 10th cranial nerve. And according to development, muscles derived from the sixth pharyngeal arch, a part of the developing pharynx, and muscles derived from the cranial pharyngeal arch, fourth pharyngeal arch. So here the fourth pharyngeal arch. Now only cricothyroid is derived from the fourth pharyngeal arch, and that's why it is supplied by the superior laryngeal nerve. All the other muscles are derived from the sixth pharyngeal arch or the last pharyngeal arch, also called branchial arch. So all of them are supplied by the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Now if you take any one muscle here, suppose I take thyroarytenoid. Here it is. Now we apply various classifications. The purpose of the classification is to conveniently arrive at a description of any muscle. So, thyroarytenoid, when you apply all this classification, is a paired muscle. It is not a tensor, not an abductor. It is an adductor of the vocal fold. Thyroarytenoid, and it slackens the vocal fold. That will be better rather than adduction. It is opposite to lengthening of the vocal fold, which is done by the cricothyroid. Thyroarytenoid we are considering. It is supplied by the recurrent laryngeal nerve as it develops from the sixth pharyngeal arch. So, when we consider the accents, we had little difficulty here. That's why in the fourth class I have included others. So it is not necessary that a muscle must act on the vocal fold. It is not necessary that the muscle must act on the laryngeal inlet. It is not necessary that muscle should be an adductor or abductor of the vocal fold or tensor. So thyroarytenoid slackens, shortens makes lose the vocal fold. This is the recap of what we discussed previously. Now we go beyond this. And last time I had shown the various muscles somewhat like this. And we can identify that thyroarytenoid is here. It is in the direction of the vocal fold. And if the thyroid cartilage is brought nearer to the arytenoid cartilage, which we have shown here, then it strengthens the vocal fold. And we have shown here that deep part of the same sheet is called vocalis. That vocalis is in that location. The deeper part. It also runs from the thyroid cartilage to the arytenoid. Vocalis. And additionally, thyroepiglotticus is shown here, going to the laryngeal inlet. The cricothyroid, deeper lateral cricoarytenoid at the back, posterior cricoarytenoid at the back only, the transverse arytenoid, and the blue one, oblique arytenoid. And if we extend this into the aryepiglottic fold, we get aryepiglotticus in that location. So these are the classifications already we have considered. They will make convenient describing any intrinsic muscle of the larynx. Here in the specimen, at the back of the larynx, this is larynx, back. Right up to here it is larynx. This is tongue. And this is trachea. And esophagus will be in the same location. The epiglottis is here. Now see, this is the posterior cricoarytenoid. This is transverse arytenoid. Again, I'll show you transverse arytenoid. And the oblique arytenoid are here. Oblique arytenoid. Oblique arytenoid. And beyond the oblique arytenoid, I have colored the muscle fibers of aryepiglotticus are not well seen. That's why here I have painted the aryepiglotticus. And this is the aryepiglottic fold. And if you consider right and left aryepiglotticus muscle, they will act as sphincter of this laryngeal inlet. The cavity of the larynx is inside here and below here. This is not the cavity of the larynx. Here soft tissues will be there, mucosa will be there, belonging to pharynx, which will continue with the esophagus. That pharynx will be called laryngopharynx. Whatever pharynx you find in this location, whatever pharynx you find behind the tongue, that will be oropharynx. And now this is the interior. And you have to keep in mind this interior of the larynx all the time when you discuss the speech, because phonation begins at the vocal fold. Between the vocal fold and arytenoid cartilages, the region is rima glottidis, which is very important for respiration and speech. And of course, sagittal section, this is the epiglottis, aryepiglottic fold, the labels are there. Minor cartilages of the larynx, thyroid cartilage at the front in section, cricoid cartilage at the front in section, at the back in section. The arytenoid cartilage is ear where the transverse and oblique arytenoid muscles are present. And Sobotas Atlas has given the muscles like this. You can clearly see here airy epiglotticus, oblique arytenoid. These are not actually continuous. There is a break in continuity there. Transverse arytenoid, posterior cricoarytenoid. And in a slanted lateral view, again you find the oblique arytenoid. This time the airy epiglotticus is not shown, but airy epiglotticus is expected here in the airy epiglottic fold region. And if a muscle is coming from the thyroid cartilage, which is there, it will be thyroepiglotticus, dilating the laryngeal inlet. Posterior cricoarytenoid here and here, and at the front cricothyroid, and deep to that lateral cricoarytenoid. There's two cricoarytenoid meet at the muscular process of the arytenoid cartilage. And one muscle, lateral cricoarytenoid, is adductor of the vocal fold. Posterior cricoarytenoid is abductor of the vocal fold. And we go beyond this. And the muscles look very clear in the specimen because these important nerves are removed. We supply them. The recurrent laryngeal nerve, the branches are here. At higher level, superior laryngeal or its internal laryngeal nerve branches are present. So that's the neurology which we'll be discussing in future. And now the muscles beyond the larynx. That is the main consideration in this presentation. And these muscles beyond larynx are those which are attached to the thoracic cage, sternum and ribs. Muscles which are involved in respiration, they may affect the speech. In fact, the speech requires efficient functioning of the lungs and the house of the lung, thoracic cavity and thoracic cage. This is the thoracic cage with sternum at the front, vertebral column at the back, and 12 pairs of ribs at the side. So in general, you can say that muscles which are attached to the sternum and ribs may affect the respiration and speech. And when we go beyond this, in the very first part which we discussed for speech, I had drawn this diagram which included the thorax there and abdomen there. And between them, the diaphragm here, the inverted J-shaped diaphragm, forming right and left domes, separating the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity, thoracic, abdominal. For speech, lot of energy is required and lungs provide that energy. We have to breathe in and breathe out. Generally, breathing out, expiration, is involved in speech production in men, which does not mean that inspiration cannot produce speech, but that speech will be difficult to produce. So we use the expired air which goes out from the lungs and bronchi and trachea into the larynx, and that expired air acts on the vocal fold. There, on the vocal fold in that situation, sending it into vibration, and that is the beginning of phonation. Then higher up, resonance and articulation happen. And that is how the final speech is produced with the help of the brain right from the beginning. Because we generally think and then speak. And speech is a very complex process. You can speak, and what you speak is a language. You can write the language, you can read the language, you can sing the language. And for all this, there are different parts of cerebral hemisphere and brain which are resolved. And we are, of course, discussing the musculature. The musculature is under control of several cranial nerves and spinal nerves. And here are the muscles. Now you can see the muscles here. I will show them. But the details are not very important. The details may be learned along with the dissection, that is better. But the principal muscles I will quickly show you here. We already considered the diaphragm. Now you see the big broad muscle at the back, which connects the lower limb with the upper limb. That muscle connects the lower limb, hip bone, with the upper limb and with the thoracic cage, ribs. And indirectly, of course, with the vertebral column, latissimus dorsi. One of the broadest muscles of the body, broadest. Latissimus means broad. Dorsi is at the back. And then the muscles which are attached to the ribs, many of them are seen here. And in between the ribs, lot of muscles are there. There are some muscles which run from the thoracic cage, sternum, and clavicle, and first rib, upward and downward. Upward and downward. Not only first rib, but other ribs also can be included. So, this gives some idea about the muscles which participate, not the lower limb muscles. Latissimus dorsi basically belongs to the upper limb. But muscles of the trunk, that means thorax and abdomen. Some of the muscles of the head and neck are also involved in speech production. If they are involved in respiration, they may be involved in speech. That is important to know. Now, here we see one of the main muscles, diaphragm, a partition between the thoracic cage, so thoracic cavity basically, and abdominal or abdominopelvic cavity, inverted J-like, attached to the sternum, attached to the lower rib, attached to the lumbar vertebrae, diaphragm. It can go up, it can go down. When we breathe in, the diaphragm goes down. When we breathe out, diaphragm goes up in that direction. That breathing out, expiration is mainly involved in speech. And here again, some of the same muscles are shown. The trapezius is not involved directly in respiration and speech. But otherwise, this latissimus dorsi and the muscle which keeps us erect, muscle of the spine called erector spinae. In that location, it's a long muscle running from the sacrum to the you can say cranium, sacrum to cranium, erector spinae, is also involved in respiration and speech. The muscles of the abdomen are in this location, a straight muscle, rectus abdominis. And then lateral to that, there are 3 layers of muscles. The deepest one is called transverse muscle of the abdomen, transversus abdominis. Next one is called internal oblique, and the most superficial is called external oblique. 3 on each side. So, in the abdomen here, we have considered totally 8 muscles which participate in respiration and speech. And again, we find the abdominal musculature, the external oblique, internal oblique, and transversus abdominis. But here, our main concentration is on the pectoral muscles of the chest, pectoralis major, and deep to that minor is there. And then there are muscles with serrations, so-like margin. Serratus anterior, serratus posterior. Again, there are 2, serratus posterior superior and serratus posterior inferior. They are at the back. And this is the external oblique muscle. The label appears here, which meets the serratus anterior, lower part, and it also meets the latissimus dorsi. It also meets the latissimus dorsi. Latissimus dorsi is shown here. So that is latissimus dorsi. This is serratus anterior, and meeting these 2 muscles, external oblique of the abdomen. And now we are coming to the conclusion. You have to classify the muscles into inspiratory and expiratory. Expiratory. So muscles which are involved in expiration are generally the participants in speech production. Energy is provided by such muscles. because we require expired air, not generally the inspired air. Of course, you have to first breathe in, then only breathing out happens. But speech is produced during that breathing out phase. Now, there are muscles which increase the circumference of the thoracic cavity. Others decrease. So those which increase the circumference are inspiratory. Those which decrease the circumference, expiratory. And if we look at the names of this muscle, well, the circumference is decreased by the internal intercostal. It is decreased by the muscle which so far we did not consider, but transverse thoracic or transverse thoracic. Previously it was called sternocostal, but there is in the abdomen transversus abdominis, so it is called transversus thoracic. We already considered latissimus dorsi. We labeled serratus posterior inferior is an expiratory muscle, but the superior muscle is inspiratory. And then the erector spinae parts are mentioned. Some of them are involved in expiration and others are involved in inspiration. So, an abdominal muscle, external oblique, internal oblique, rectus abdominis. Not only that, but those which are appearing here, even the transversus abdominis. All these muscles on the right side column are involved in expiration, breathing out, and that's why they may participate in speech. Diaphragm goes up and down. So along with this muscle, it must be mentioned that the thoracic cavity, it can enlarge in three directions. It can enlarge superior inferior direction, enlarge in that direction, superior inferior. Transverse dimension. So vertical dimension, transverse dimension, and anteroposterior dimension. And different muscles are involved in enlarging different dimensions. When breathing out occurs, obviously the lungs are compressed by the musculature involved in expiration, breathing out. And you should remember that particularly the lungs are elastic. So there is a recoil of the elastic lung that can also force the air out. Even the thoracic cage, the bones and cartilages are also elastic to an extent. So muscles other than those of the larynx are involved in speech. One has to study in detail respiration, because from respiration the energy for the speech is provided. And those who are in first year MBBS or BDS, they study the bucket handle and pump handle movement. And I just saw those movements somewhat like this. The bucket handle and pump handle applied to the thoracic cavity. Pump goes up and down. Pump goes. So if you consider the rib, I will bring it. This is the rib. Similarly, on the other side, the rib. Okay, that will be better. And if they are elevated, like bucket handle, here you find two handles. Generally, bucket has one handle. Here there are two. Bucket handle, this is one, and other. And if they are, the ribs are oblique, if they are bucket handle, if it is elevated like this, transverse dimension will increase. And pump handle is, the rib is like that, axis is here, and the movement occurs. The anterior part goes up and then down. The axis is through the neck of the rib. And I think I can adjust better here. This is the front. This is the back. Axis is here. And it is elevated like that. So, and if the oblique rib is elevated, the sternum is put to the front. Anteroposterior dimension is increased. So, how many muscles are there? The number is big. The diaphragm is one. Okay. But we considered abdominal muscles, 3 pairs, so 6 plus 1 rectus abdominis. So totally in the abdomen, 8 muscles are involved, those which are in the anterior abdominal wall. At the thoracic cage, you find intercostal between the ribs. And these intercostal are, the intercostal muscles are 11 pairs external intercostal, 11 pairs internal intercostal. So 22 plus 22. Innermost intercostal, the number is variable. Levator costi at the back, doubtful as participants in respiration, but 12 pairs are there. And then the other muscles which I have mentioned, the sternomastoid in the neck region, right and left here, right and left, so there are 2, scaleni, 3 pairs, so 6. Then cerecti we mentioned several. That is the most dorsey. This is not the end. Already 17 muscles of the larynx we have considered, and we are going to consider still further other muscles which may be involved in speech production. So this is all that I wanted to cover in this presentation, and then we will take up the muscles at higher level and more relevant in the next presentation. Speech part 7 it would be. Thank you.